And we are live. We're going to wait for some people to come on in. Make sure you guys are checking us out on the LA Football Network, ladies and gents. Tough one tonight, guys. We're going to dive in to all the action from Seattle tonight. UCLA unfortunately drops another one. We're going to get some people in the chat. Hope you guys are doing well. In the meantime, I'm going to read our sponsor for the LA Football Network, guys. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with over our 150 slot games. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. We got enough people in the chat already, it looks like, guys. We may as well just dive on into this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is up, UCLA faithful? A tough one on the road tonight. A 31-19 defeat to the Washington Huskies. They actually push their home win streak to 20 straight games at their home field. Really interesting football game. A lot of little things that turned into big things out there in the game itself. Was texting with Madman throughout the game. Honored to have him join me once again for a post game. Talk to me, man. Tough game, but excited to be talking with you after a UCLA unfortunate loss.
Yeah, Thriller, always so great to be with you, brother. You know, right in the wins, the loses, the draws. You know, it's the good, bad, and the ugly. We're ride or die, of course. Will, you said it really well. I mean, a very interesting game in a lot of ways. I sort of walk away with perhaps 5 takeaways, and then we can, you quarterback us wherever we want to go from there. To me, it really felt like the Jeffers injury was significant, and, already going in there without Nicky Prongos and then having Jeffers get hurt, when that left tackle position, you're down to 3rd, 4th string at that point. We really started regressing as an offensive line. We started looking like the offensive line that was part of that 1-5 start. And then when you sort of overlay that, Will, Carmody got hurt, later in the game also. That looks like kind of a broken hand or a broken wrist, the way he was just sort of holding it off. I don't have any firm reports there, but that's what it sort of looked like. It just looked like a decimated offensive line, Will, and a Washington team that did not have a sack over the course of the previous 3 games ended up having 6 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. So if you closed your eyes and you just heard the noises and then you sort of awoke and watched this game, it really looked eerily similar at the line of scrimmage to the team that got off to that 1-5 start. And so I think the decimation of the offensive line is the first thing I sort of take away with the team. The second thing, Will, is as a result of that, it felt like the offense was a little bit off schedule, off rhythm, and I thought Garbs was jumpy tonight. He was a little erratic. Obviously, some pretty decent numbers, north of 270. He had a couple of touchdown passes, but there were so many balls there, Will, that he missed. He had TMA for a touchdown. He had Quasi for a touchdown later. Even that first down, Will, if you recall, that ball to TMA, I mean, he kind of threw it across the grain, really lucky that was not picked off. Then there was that ball later that was dropped. That felt like it could have been picked off very easily. He was very erratic with his throws, a lack of consistency. And I think that really manifested itself, Will, when you talked about kind of the money down and distance. And before that sort of garbage time touchdown at the end, Will, 6 drives UCLA had inside the Washington 30-yard line and only came away with 13 points. Obviously 2 fumbles, a missed field goal, a field goal where they missed TMA for a touchdown, and then another field goal and a touchdown. I mean, 6 drives will only be 13 points.
Let's pause on that.
Yes,
I think
please.
that to me was the key difference. And I don't know how many red zone turnovers we've had as a team this year, but it feels like we're nearing the double digits. It is getting bad. The Garbers fumble, on the first half was really tough. And then the Jack Peterson fumble. I mean, we're at the 27-yard line. You're driving. You're down 14-13. It's a critical time in the game where your defense has literally given you 2 interceptions to start the second half from Will Rogers. And just that fumble alone, giving the ball back when momentum was swinging your direction, really a game of momentum as the game of football is as a whole, just a backbreaking turnovers. And, Pagani missed that field goal, but in a way it was kind of like a ball don't lie situation.
Yeah.
Barber should have had another pick there. Like that, the whole stadium was just like, oh, you could hear the momentum of the stadium kind of swing that way when a near pick six happens for Washington. So they really got to clean it up, man.
Absolutely, Will. No, you said it. You said it best there, Will. It looked like the old offensive line, and as a result of it, it looked like early season Garbers, and it just, this game felt, Will, I know the score was a little bit different. It felt a lot like that Minnesota game, because if you really sort of break it down, as crazy as it sounds, it felt like we outplayed them, and we could not finish these drives. We couldn't kind of close things out. And Will, that kind of leads me to the third element. Again, the boneheaded mistakes kind of catch up with us, right? The muffed punt, the shank of the punt, that really led, two of them. The second one led to an easy touchdown. And unfortunately, the roughing the passer with Femi when we had the pick with Addison, that was killer. And then actually the last one with Kirkwood with the PI on 4th and 1, really at the end there, Washington thought we jumped, but we got back. And so they kind of threw that fade ball. We could have gotten the ball back again. The game was in a tough spot there, but even that we sort of conceded there. So this was finally the week where some of these boneheaded mistakes really caught up to us. So those were kind of the first three things, Will. But then I have to sort of be positive as well. Again, our fearsome foursome, my God, right? How well did they play? Toia was a menace to society, Will. Menace to society. Schlesinger, 17 tackles, Will. Medrano with the pick and the deflection for the other pick. Guys were just all over the field. And then Oladipo, despite that personal foul, 2 tackles for loss, 6 tackles. So our fearsome foursome did a phenomenal job, Will. And really, if you break it down with Washington in that first half, they scored on a short field. And then the second was off of that sudden change, Will, off of the Garber's fumble. Those were their sort of 2 touchdowns. And then it was just kind of that drive at the very end where, again, we just couldn't seem to sort of generate the momentum, particularly in that early third quarter, that they gave it up. But other than that, Washington had a really hard time running the ball. They had a really hard time really getting any sort of consistent passing game. Rodgers had to be benched. Really, the only success they had, Will, was in the screen game, kind of leveraging the pass rush and just the dominance in the trenches against us a little bit to be able to kind of get us out of gap contain. And then the freshman kid coming in really sort of changed the dynamic there for them. So that to me was kind of takeaway number 4, Will, is that, again, our defensive front is the strength of this team. And that's why you felt like, if you looked at play over play, down over down, really felt like we outplayed it. And then the last thing, Will, I'll say it, something that you'll appreciate. It's how you describe it. It's your take, of course. And that is Jedd Fisch, UCLA killer, 3rd consecutive year, 3rd straight year prior to the SC game, either immediately prior to the SC game or a couple of weeks prior to the SC game, nips us in the butt again. So lots to unpack there, Will. I'll let you quarterback us from here, but those are sort of my immediate takeaways.
This guy is the freaking boogeyman for UCLA football. This is 3 years in a row of trap games, and 3 years in a row he's taken a victory from UCLA. It's just unbelievable what this guy does. And before the Dijon fodder started, when it came to him becoming the head coach, we were laying out the guys we wanted to get, and this was my number 1 choice. I just know what this guy brings to the table. Even the in-game management, him switching to the true freshman Damon Williams out of Basha High School in Arizona. It was clear our defense was prepared for Will Rogers and knew what he was going to bring to the table. The switch of more of a dual threat like fit with Damon Williams. And let's be clear, he was 7 of 9 through the air for 67 yards. He was moving the football with his arm too. But just the 31 yards rushing he brought to the table, 2 drives in the fourth quarter, 2 touchdowns he brought for them. We didn't have answers. Jedd Fisch making those in-game adjustments really saved Washington.
Will, think about that Williams kid, though, Will, just for a quick second. How fast is that kid? It is staggering. Murray. I thought that exactly. The telecast said Kyler Murray. It's so spot on. And Washington has so much to be excited about next year, Will. 46 transfers and Jetfish gets them into a bowl game year one, and now you're going to hand over the keys to this Williams kid. Future is bright for Washington for sure. And, Jetfish knows what he's doing.
Jetfish definitely does. And I wouldn't be shocked if we look up in about 4 to 5 years and he's one of the premier coaches in all of college football, because he's one of those guys that just kind of keeps climbing the ladder. I think Washington is not like a destination for him. I think it's going to be more of a future SEC or a Big Ten power. Hell, maybe he's even the next Penn State coach.
There you go.
With what's going on with James Franklin. So a lot of stuff going on there. But yeah, man, I mean, you nailed it on so many of those. It's tough because I felt outside of the last fourth quarter and kind of with the wheels falling off, this defense looks so good. Jay Toia was getting triple teamed and making such impact plays that I believe, those 2 interceptions Will Rogers had, huge credit to that was just Toia blowing up every single one of those plays and putting the fear of God into these guys, like what's going on there. It's unbelievable. So Jay Toia deserves a ton of credit. I'm looking at Kane Medrano, and I think this guy can play. He's so athletic. He can play safety, linebacker, and maybe edge rusher at the next level. The ball skills he's had. I mean, this is like the 3rd interception he's had all year. We know he can rush off the edge. I think safety's got to be in, the play for him. And him being this versatile is going to make him that much more interesting of a draft prospect moving forward. Femi looks natural at the edge spot.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 tackles for a loss. The roughing the passer just killed you right there because he had an interception going the other way, but the kid can absolutely play it. I mean, Schlesinger, I got to be honest, I saw some of the tackles. He didn't make that big impact play that you felt like the Iowa game or, the Nebraska game where he got the sack on 4th down. But you look at the stat sheet at the end of the game and 17 tackles, 12 solo tackles at that. So, I mean, just even when he feels like he's having an off night, he's still arguably the most impactful.
A lot was funneled to him, Will. It was sort of like Toia making the initial play or Femi making the initial play or Kane making the initial play. And then it was sort of funneled into Schlesinger to do the cleanup job, and I think that's kind of where it was. He was sort of the garbage man, tonight and just kind of took care of business there. And I want to double click on something really interesting that you said. And I think it's something that hopefully people around the country appreciate more as we sort of get closer to the end of the college football season and as we start talking about the NFL draft. I don't know if there are many players in this sport that can play all 3 levels of the defense like Kane Medrano. I mean, how many prospects can you say what you just said about? Oh, we can put him at the edge, or we can put him at backer, or, he could even be strong safety if we need him to with the ball skills. That is insane. And so the fact of the matter is, if there are NFL GMs paying attention, Medrano is a total game changer. I mean, and couldn't you see him in a Steeler uniform or in a Ravens uniform or, in one of those organizations that really understands defense year over year? Medrano could very well be one of the 5 or 10 absolute steals, Will, of the NFL draft here in April.
Yeah, and my hope is he joins his former teammate, Otito Ogbonnia, right up the road with the Chargers, man. Why not? Playing for Jim Harbaugh. They need some help in the linebacking room at the very least. It was tough, man. The run game, you kind of nailed it. I felt like it was a fish out of water scenario last week with how successful they were on the ground. That one was just kind of like, whoa, like, are we turning a corner here? Or is this kind of just a one-off game? And it looks clear to me with the offensive line struggling. Yes, Jeffers went down. Yes, Carmody went down. Yes, we didn't have Prongos. But my God, I mean, it was just collapse from this offensive line in terms of the run game and the pass protection. I mean, 6 sacks and 9 tackles for a loss for this Washington defense. 33 carries for 52 yards. Madman, that is a 1.6 yards a carry average. They reverted literally back to the worst.
We're back to the start of the season, Will. You said it best. Exactly.
Yeah. So you revert back to the worst rush offense within the conference. And I mean, dude, the crazy thing is, if you need more stakes for the Victory Bell game, there's a scenario where UCLA and USC are both fighting for their bowl eligibility in this game. I mean, that gets me excited for next week, but it's kind of got a painstaking feel to it, knowing that this game was hanging in the balance, man. Like, it was right there for you. You're down 13-14. You're driving, a couple turnovers in the red zone, some missed field goals. just undisciplined play. And I know discipline's the top of the DRE for Deshaun. It just doesn't show week in and week out. Do you mind talking about the discipline of this team? Because it's a little bit of a concern right now.
Yeah, well, it just seems systemic week over week. And, we were so excited about the 3-game winning streak that we glossed over a couple things in particular, particularly from the Iowa game last week, if you recall too, Will, right? Like, remember in that Iowa game, late third, early fourth, we're up 17-10. We get the stop. And then if you recall, we have the offsides, and give them an automatic first down, and that leads to their touchdown. We've been biting ourselves and shooting ourselves in the foot week after week. Obviously, issues at Nebraska, letting them back in the game. Obviously, there were some concerns with Rutgers. And I don't know what it is where there's such a disconnect between the head coach prioritizing discipline as the number one priority of the team and the program, and the team just not responding in that particular way, where some of these, Will, are just so unforced. This is not even where, you're sort of getting baited into some situations. So it is absolutely a huge concern. And I'll tell you, Will, if they don't clean it up in these 2 games,
it's going to cost them.
It's going to cost them. It's going to cost them the bowl bid, because you cannot keep sort of playing with fire and keep expecting to come out on the other side victorious. So I think job number one for Deshaun is to say, how do we get back to sort of not shooting ourselves in the foot? And how do we sort of get to a place where we're at under 20 penalty yards in a game? I mean, I think you have to sort of set a quantitative goal here and really make it a point of emphasis. And what I'm concerned about, Will, is that it is the Victory Bell game is the next game. And that game is so juiced with emotion, particularly when it's at the Rose Bowl on the UCLA side, where it's hard to sort of keep yourself in check. And when you're an undisciplined team to sort of begin with and haven't really turned that corner in discipline, now you have your arch rival coming into town. How are you expected to kind of keep that self-control, that self-regulation? So to me, Will, that has got to be, you got to almost spend a whole day, on Sunday, Monday, really just talking about not shooting yourselves in the foot. Otherwise, it's hard to foresee a scenario where this team gets to that magic 6 and gets the bowl eligibility.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had 4 unsportsmanlike conducts in the last 2 weeks. And I mean, the refs nearly gave us another one after that second interception from Kane Madrano. They gave a warning to the sideline this time, which, in turn helped us out. But we're towing the line. You can't be that close. There's certain things you cannot let happen, and you got to control yourself out there on the football field. And I felt UCLA has not been doing that to an extent.
And Will, the last thing I'll say on that one, just as we're sort of discussing this, is sometimes it's better to sort of learn the lesson in a loss. Like sometimes it doesn't always register when you're winning, right? Like 3 straight, and you can sort of rationalize yourself that saying, look, we're playing such a physical brand of ball on the defensive line. The offensive line is coming together. We ran the ball so well. Like we're trying to sort of create this physical, nasty identity over this 3-game win streak. And so the other side of that is like, yeah, we're going to let a couple things go from an unsportsmanlike conduct perspective or a physicality perspective, or we're going to get our hands caught in the cookie jar, but it's working for us because we're winning. Now, with this loss, I think Deshaun can be a lot more heavy-handed with the team on Sunday and Monday and say, look, this cost us dearly. So is that now an opportunity to sort of reset?
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of double-click on what you said there, 9 penalties for 47 yards for UCLA today. Another problem I have, and this takes me back to a quote that we had the last time we recorded, where you said, if Logan Loya is the leading receiver for UCLA moving forward, this team's going to go 7-5. They're going to run the table. I thought Loya was out for the first half. We didn't see him in a lot of these formations. And then he makes a 5-yard catch on 3rd down, moves the chains. Classic Logan Loya. When his number's called, he delivers. That's the only target he got all game. I have a problem with that as somebody that, knows what's in the field. No shade to Jack Peterson. You can't fumble in the red zone. You got to give it to playmakers that are moving forward. Logan Loya, if he gets more targets in this game, I'm optimistic UCLA finds a way to win this game. Is that a crazy take for the senior leader of this wide receiver room. And
not at all, Will. I mean, it's the opposite of a crazy take. I mean, it's a super wise comment that you've made. Will, it almost feels like this game, as we're sort of breaking it down, it almost feels like the Sandler movie with 41st Dates. You remember that? Like, where it's like there's like amnesia. Yeah. There's sort of the 51st Dates where there's the amnesia, where it's like, I don't know, like, did we like forget what happened the last 3 weeks and like what it took to get us to win games? Because this is exactly what we saw the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. Offensive line not being able to sort of show up and be credible. It's throwing, the run game for an absolute loof. They're getting stuff before they're getting started. It's making Garbers jumpy, and he's going to be sort of turnover prone, and he's going to be erratic. And Garbers is locking in on his, spring practice buddy, TMA, who we love, who's absolutely outstanding.
He made some plays today, but
he wasn't sort of peppering the ball around to everyone, right? It was sort of TMA and then a little bit with Quasi. But again, Loya 1 target, J. Mike 1 target. Everyone is sort of forgotten elsewhere. So it's unbelievable. It's almost like this team went back into like a time capsule and like forgot what happened over the 3-game win streak and just reverted back. It's the most bizarre thing, Will, honestly, that I can, it's one thing to sort of lose. And look, this team lost to a Washington squad that is now at 20 consecutive games. I mean, this is, a win streak that's short of Georgia. Georgia's at 26 straight wins at home. This is the second longest home winning streak in the country in all of college football. There is absolutely no shame in losing this game in this venue, particularly in a night game, particularly in 43-degree temperature. But it's the manner in which they lost, where it's just the repetition of the same mistakes from the first 6 weeks. It's just so perplexing that, you knew you spent the whole first half of the season playing a certain way that was unsuccessful. Granted, unbelievable competition. But then you turn the corner, you turn things around, and then you revert back. I mean, even Bieniemy went back to sort of his old, like, 5-step drops and Garbs holding the ball longer and longer developing plays. Like, what happened to sort of the quick reads? What happened to all of the things that led us to this 3-game win streak? Well, it almost felt like this win streak made this team complacent tonight, where it was like, okay, we're winning again. Now we can sort of go back to what we originally wanted to do. And it was sort of a fatal mistake.
Yeah. And I think I'm a little bit more sympathetic to Bieniemy's struggles, just because if you have no semblance of a run game, that affects your entire play calling strategy and schematic. So, like, 33.
But he didn't leverage the wheel routes enough tonight. He didn't get the ball out quick tonight, in the same way that he did the last 3 weeks. Like, when the line is bad, right? And it was just those quick 2-read, 1-2 read, Garbs go. Like, Garbs was back there kind of dancing around, looking down the field. There were longer developing plays. We sort of went back to sort of that delayed draw play, Will, if you recall, and then finally kind of chucked that, went back to the zone read. It's almost like we forgot everything that we did over the 3-game win streak. I mean, I'm still sort of wrapping my head around the rationale there, to me, it's sort of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We tried to fix something that was fixed, so it's just, it's kind of remarkable.
It is. And I mean, we talked about J. Mike. I mean, dude, we were so excited when this guy transferred in 2 years ago. This is one of the all-time what-ifs, I think, in UCLA, because the talent is breathtaking if you watch this guy play. Just it almost feels like the offensive version of Carl Jones. Remember, Carl Jones was talked about like, this guy, he's just such an athlete off the edge. He's going to make plays. And you just didn't see a lot of it. And even Carl Jones, I think he's like a rotational player for the Bears now. Like, he's in the NFL. Like, this is what happens. The same thing's going to happen to J. Mike. Like, it drives me crazy because this guy is so goddamn talented. And they don't want to give him the ball, period. I do not understand it. It's sad. And what I'm angry about with the play calling with Bieniemy, so I'm not going to put all the blame on him. But if that's not working, put the ball in the hands of Loya, of Sturdy, some of these veteran guys back there. I know Quasi's outstanding. I've got no problem feeding the ball to Quasi. Hey, TMA had 2 20-plus yard catches on third down. He's doing great things. just peppering around a little bit more. The run game's not working. The one guy we can point to that's been, playing ball as well as any player at his position, Maliki Matavell.
No question about it.
This guy is unreal. 7 catches, 98 yards, had that late touchdown. In a game full of negatives, I want to, maybe close on this positives. UCLA, since we've been here, man, since we've been doing this pod, it's like we've had this run of tight ends where it's Wilson, whether it's Asiasi, whether it's Greg Dulcich, the great Greg Dulcich. I mean, everyone knows that listen to this show how high I was on our boy GD out there. Matavao is the next in line of that group, man. He's awesome.
No question.
Like, from a two-facet player, he can block with the best of them and is as good a receiver right now in the tight end room as anyone in the country. Do you mind double-clicking on what this guy brings to the table?
No question about it, Will. And Matavao has been so stellar. And really, if you look at those first, we got off to a bit of a slow start the first couple of possessions. And then I thought, to Bieniemy's credit, look, this is not all on Bieniemy by any stretch of the imagination. I think to your point, we're sort of just critiquing a few things that have worked in the past in this 3-game win streak that he sort of abandoned, right? Like no Loya, sort of no sort of short, plays. Again, remember what we also said, Will, kind of the magic number with Keegan, 8 to 10 touches a game. Keegan's touches were way down tonight, and so just kind of reverting back to some of the bad habits from earlier in the year. Matavao was absolutely sensational. And to Bieniemy's credit, there were a couple of plays that he drew up. Some of that misdirection where it was sort of the bootleg and then that reverse action. I mean, that's all of that sort of NFL concept, in terms of misdirection there off of the play action. Matavao had a couple stellar receptions there in that first third of the game that really set up UCLA first, that first field goal. And then unfortunately the Garbs fumble, but we got there on the back of Matavao. Will, he's going to, with 2 games left right now, he's in pole position to be the leading receiver on this team. And, between the soft hands, between the willingness to sort of take the punishment in the middle of the field, and also between the agility, Will, in terms of yards after the catch as a tight end. He's also a terrific blocker. Matavao has the total package. This is going to be another NFL player, in my opinion, Will. He is absolutely sensational. What a find. We missed him terribly. Last week, we're able to sort of get by Iowa, but we certainly missed him. Thankfully, he's back and really looking for him to make a huge impact next week in the Victory Bell game and hopefully closing things out with Fresno State. So Matavao has been the most consistent offensive weapon, Will, for Ethan Garbers all year. I think we've had guys sort of really sort of hit some ceilings. There's been some ebbs and flows. Matavao has been the most consistent offensive weapon for UCLA all year because, A, he's gotten the usage rate, he's gotten the opportunities, and my God, he's capitalized on those opportunities. He's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, and it's a shame he missed that Iowa game, too, because I think he'd be in pole position to maybe be an all Big Ten selection at the tight end spot with how he's played. And I think that's kind of where we're going to wrap it up. We kind of notched out everything that we had to talk about when it came to this unfortunate loss. Guys, this next week is going to be crucial, and it's going to come down to a potential bowl bid for beating that team across town in the Trojans. We're going to save kind of our spiel with that as we're going to do our yearly crossover show with our other LAFB shows. Salute to Troy. Madman's a member on both of these. I would like to hope he's rooting for UCLA in this game. We'll see where it goes with that. I will see. But it's going to be a lot of fun, man. We're going to have a lot of fun getting Coach Rowe, Ryan Dyrud, the Godfather, on here with yourself, Madman. So, guys, we're going to sign off tonight. Unfortunately, a loss, 31-19. Washington takes the W. But, hey, man, you win next week. Everything is still in play for a
Everything is still intact.
And you get to beat the Trojans if you can.
Absolutely.
Do it. Guys,
and Will, come on. Will,
I hope so.
Us,
you do 2 shows, man.
Always,
we don't know.
It's always the Bruins, baby. It's always the Bruins. Come on now.
I love it. We love it, man. Well, you got his answer here, right now. Much love to all you guys, man. Tough loss. Let's get it done next week. 4's up, guys.